The things which you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. This is the story of one individual who applied this training and started a global movement of multiplying disciples. There is a spiritual movement in the medical field today. Medical professionals and students sharing their faith and discipling others. It began in 1971 when Kent and Diane Hutchison moved to the Philippines to start the Great Commission Training Center, or GCTC. One of Kent's early disciples was Yang Chen, a pre-medical student at the University of the Philippines, or UP. Yang became the key player of the student movement. Kent worked with Yang to train these new Christians how to reach and disciple their own friends for Christ.
Kent had a 7-generation chain of multiplication. Young was the first, and then who led the next one to the Lord, on down to the last. The last little guy said, "I guess I'm the baby of the chain. I just met Jesus 2 weeks ago."
Yang had the vision to impact the world of medicine with the gospel.
More people will pass through the doors of a hospital than ever pass through the doors of a church.
Making men whole means providing care not just for the physical, emotional, psychological needs, but for the spiritual needs as well. And yet historically, traditionally, we have often seen our ministry as being something outside of the profession, something we do after hours. And one of my growing convictions as I began to go through the clinical years of my training process was asking the Lord, how do we redeem those 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours of the time that we are in fact in the mission field? How do we bring Christ into the picture when a patient walks in the door, when we're making rounds, when we're interacting with the colleagues and staff?
We are not doctors who happen to be Christians, but we are Christians who happen to be medical doctors.
As a first-year student, Yang faithfully shared his faith with his classmates. After months of rejection, Yang met Chris Cristobal, who received Christ. While in medical school, Chris was also an instructor in another university. Yang worked with Chris to disciple the latter students who went on to enroll in 5 different medical schools in Metro Manila. Within a 2-year period, almost 400 medical students were involved in a spiritual movement that eventually spread from the Metro Manila area to medical schools across the nation and other parts of the world.
The goal of the medical leaders is to have one spiritual movement in every one of the 53 medical schools in the Philippines.
I realized that I could be doing this on my own for the rest of my life and make a very little impact in terms of kingdom impact within the healthcare profession. And I realized that I needed to mobilize others to be involved in this process.
We are challenging doctors and allied professionals to trust God for at least spiritual great-grandchildren who will multiply into the next generations.
It's an amazing testament of God's faithfulness and power. Just as a movement of multiplying disciples began with Kent, so can they begin with you.